Story 1 by Blair Daniels. My husband Seth has a photographic memory. When he said something was off with the jungle morel in the nursery, I should have believed him. Didn't the orange thing have a baby in her arms? He said. Eyebrows nodded. I could have sworn. I looked from the ape's empty arms to the toucans above, to the tigers below. They seemed to be instantly feeding on something. I think it was always like this, I said, sliding the crib against the wall. Wasn't it? He sighed loudly, his typical sign of annoyance. No, really, look at it, Britt. I'm positive she had a baby in her arms when we came through the house a week ago. I walked over and stared at the morel. It was beautiful. One of the reasons we bought this house. Long branches of rubber trees, thick canopies, and of verdant leaves. Stringler fidge roping and tangling around thick trunks. Tigers down below in the grass. Lemurs poking through the trees. A toucan flying near the ceiling. And the orange thing. She sat in the tree right above the crib. Orange tufts of hair, contrasting sharply in the green around her. She was looking down at the floor, and there was something profoundly sad in her black, sparkling eyes. I shrugged and just headed towards the door. Hey, I'm going to get some water. Want anything? Cook would be great. I jumped down the stairs. Our babysitter Kaylee was playing with Kyle on the carpet. As soon as he saw me, he cracked a beastly smile. Hey, buddy, I said, giving him a little hug. Go back at me, and I smiled. When I returned, Seth was still staring at the orange thing. She's beautiful, isn't she? I laughed and nudged his shoulder. Should I be jealous? He smiled, shaking his head, and cracked open the can of Coke. He was right, though. She was beautiful, with her sparkling black eyes looking right at us. First night was rough. At 3 a.m., Kyle's piercing screams came through the wall. I heaved myself out of bed, walked to the nursery. Okay, Kyle? I said through a fog of sleep. I hoisted him up and sat down in the rocking chair. As he grew quiet, holding the bottle in his little hands, I stared at Morel. In the dark shadows of the nursery, it looked almost a bit scary. The tigers looked menacing, their eyes glowing steadily in the darkness. The lemurs looked like animal versions of clouds, hiding their faces behind painted masks. The orange tank. She was looking down at the crib with her arms outstretched towards it. I thought. That's weird. I could have sworn. The next morning, in the bright sunlight of day, the morel looked beautiful again, and the orange tank was back to her normal place, looking straight out at me, her arms lashed to the tree. I must have imagined it, I thought to myself. I was half asleep after all. That night, I hoped and prayed for better sleep. I didn't get it. At 2 a.m., I shut out of bed, woken by Kyle's cries. Or at least, so I thought. When I actually stopped to listen, I didn't hear him crying. I heard him cooling. Better check on him anyways, I thought. I lifted myself out of bed and started towards the doors. But then I realized there was another noise. Mixed with his coos and ooh, hoo, hoo sound. In short, soft bursts. Curious, I stepped across the hall and swung the door of the nursery open. In the gray shadows, there was a fluttering of movement. When sleep out stayed in mind, I couldn't quite interpret what it was. I ghostly stepped towards the crib. Kyle, what are you? My breath caught in my throat. The crib was empty. Kyle? My voice grew from a hushed whisper to a piercing shriek. Kyle! Kyle! Then I stopped. Something on the wall was terribly different. The orange thing was smiling, looking proudly at something in her arms, pink and pale, painted with meticulous detail. I squinted, trying to make shadows. No. It was a baby with a tuft of black hair, shining brown eyes, and a toothing grin. Kyle.
Story 2 by user slash Tobias Wade. My mom hates her father. Grandfather Jack's name might as well be a swear word when I was growing up. Dad told me the story once, on the condition that I never tell my mom I knew. Jack was married to my grandmother Kathy for 22 years before he cheated on her. It wasn't a midlife crisis or an intoxicated indecision either. He'd been going on fishing trips every other weekend, and almost a year before Kathy figured out the fish was named Sally. And that was half his age. Either Dad doesn't know the specifics or he wouldn't tell him, but I guess Kathy decided suicide was a less sinful way out than murder or divorce. That was before I was even born. My mom hadn't spoken a word to her. I still got to know him, though. It took 8 years of his begging and pleading after I was born. Mom finally gave in and arranged for us to meet, using my father to deliver messages between them, and she was afraid of what she'd say if they spoke. I was pretty scared when my dad told me we were going to drive an hour into the desert to visit Grandpa Jack's house, and Mom only made it worse in the leading today's meeting. He might be an axe murderer by now, for all I know, Mom said. Dad said he's a professor of art history, or maybe I'll just say nasty things about me. Whatever he tells you, I don't want you to listen to him. Dad made a joke about how I've already had a lot of practice not listening to my parents. Mom didn't smile. In fact, it'd be better if you didn't talk to him at all. Just let him see that you're a happy, healthy, well-adjusted boy, and then go play by yourself until Dad takes you home. Okay? You're gonna have a great time, Dad told me. He's got a whole art studio set up with everything you can imagine. Clay pots and sculptures, water, oil, paints, brushes, tools, every size and shape. We can hang out all day if you want. Does Grandpa hate me, I asked. Of course not. He wouldn't have kept sending letters all those years if he hated you. All he cares about is seeing his grandson. Does he hate Mom? Your mom is a saint. No one could hate her. Does he hate Grandpa? Grandma? Dad looked uncomfortable, Dad. You'll have to ask him yourself. So I did. That was the first thing out of my mouth. In fact, Grandpa Jack was a pudgy old man, straight and bald, with discolored blotches on his scalp, and had a huge mustache that wiggled when he talked. He came rushing at me, arms wide for a hug, and I asked him if he hated my grandma. Froze in his tracks. Dad stepped in front of me as if trying to protect me from being hit, but Grandfather Jack just squatted down my height and looked at me solemnly in the eye. No one has as much as I did, Kathy, except your mother, of course. Just because two people love each other doesn't mean they make each other happy, though. I guess I wasn't strong enough to spend any more of my life being unhappy. Not brave enough to hurt your grandmother by telling her the truth. He smelled like Old Spice, and he seemed a pretty satisfactory explanation to date. Let him show me his studio, and we painted a big landscape together. He did all the hard stuff and details, and he helped transform every messy blotch I made into something beautiful without painting over my contribution. He asked if I was going to visit again, and I said I wanted to, as long as Mom allowed it. I've never seen a man go so red so fast, his mustache bristling like a porcupine. Your mother got no right to tell you anything. She can throw fits and slam about. You tell her that, okay? I didn't get to visit as often as I liked, but at least every month or two Dad would drive me out there. Mom was reluctant at first, but I convinced her that she'd be crushing my budding dreams if Jack didn't teach me how to. I love landscapes, but Jack's specialty was portraits, and his passion for them soon rubbed off on me. A good portrait only depicts the subject, he told me. It'll get the scuff off his chin, wrinkles under his eyes, and everything else that makes him who he is. But a great portrait? Here he took a long drink from his iced tea, liking to draw attention out the way it would go. A great portrait is always a portrait of the artist. Doesn't matter who he decided to paint, he put as much of himself into that as would tell you more than the person he's painting. Jack had a special gallery for self-portraits. He did a new one every year, the passage of time mapped onto his many faces. Seeing all the paintings together like that, I couldn't help but notice that every year his brow seemed a little heavier, his smile was a little sadder, and his eyes a little more wary. I didn't like seeing him change like that, and I told him so. Don't you worry. I still know how to paint a happy picture. I'm just saving you for the year when your mother finally forgives me. I told Mom to do that. She told me he'd be better off figuring out how to decorate hell. The self-portraits made me sad, but they didn't start frightening me to show the latest work when I was 19. Where are your eyes? I asked, staring at the blank pools of flesh dominating his latest portrait. The lines were more jagged than his previous marks, making his sagging face seem like carved of marble. Right behind my glasses, silly, he said. Why didn't you paint them? He studied the picture, seeming to notice it for the first time. Why would you look at that? He mumbled. Doesn't matter. You can't tell it's still me, can't you? More features were missing in the portrait the next year. His whole face seemed to be sliding, almost as if his skin was liquid dripping right off his face. He couldn't figure out why I was making such a fuss over it. Looks like me to me, he grunted. Shortly later, Jack was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it was all downhill from there. He'd retired as a professor several years back, and painting wasn't a hobby anymore. It was an obsession. Now that I wasn't living on my own, it was easy for him to visit more often, but even in the span of a week, he'd finished 3 or more self-portraits, each more discontenting than the last. I don't know why he even called them self-portraits. They weren't even recognizable as human anymore, just tormented flesh grotesquely and unevenly contoured as though underlying skeleton was replaced by a haphazard pile of trash. He'd get angry if I didn't recognize him in the pictures. He said he was painting who he was, and if I didn't see that, then I was the one who was blind. A few days later, and he'd be excited to show me his next one, completely forgetting that the last one even existed at all. When is your mom coming to see you? I've been calling her all week. He even forgot that she hates him too every time he'd ask and make a vague excuse and promise she'd be there next time. He was 86 when he had his stroke. He didn't paint again after that, and within the year he's gone. Dad and I went to the funeral, but Mom just locked herself in the room. Grandfather still left everything to her anyhow, saying in the will that I may not be able to give her a home, but at least I can give her my house. She didn't want to even set foot in the place though, so a week or so later I went to start boxing all the stuff up for her. That's when I saw his final painting. I was dreading even going to the art studio. And not just because I knew it was going to be the biggest job, I started stacking abominable canvases face down. I wouldn't have to look at them, but I couldn't help but notice that this one was different. It was so perfect that I could have been photographed. The self-portrait showed Jack lying peacefully in his casket, hands crossed over his chest, eyes closed. It was strange he'd been paying so pricey though, considering the rest of his recent marks were the living room. I sat there for a while thinking how heartbreaking it was for him to predict his own death like that. I left the painting out while packing, think of hanging in my apartment to honor him. There were plenty of less morbid pictures to choose from, but this one I felt like it was really him who painted it, not the disease which had devoured his mind. It made me think that his spirit was at rest somehow, and made me glad. I hung in my bedroom that night, just saying goodnight to him, just as I'd done dozens of other sleepovers where I'd lay my sleeping bag at the foot of his bed. I fell asleep quickly, exhausting from the manual work that day. I slept straight through the night, not even dreaming as far as I can remember. And sitting up in the morning, the first thing I saw was Jack staring back at me from his portrait, the one that had shown his closed eyes last night. Maybe it was like that yesterday and I didn't notice, but it didn't sit right with me at all. I remembered how Jack always used to get angry when I didn't see the same thing as him in the pictures. Maybe he was right, and I really was just blind. I didn't think too much of it until the next night. I woke up and the painting was screaming. No sound, I'm not that mad yet, but the mouth was open, twisted, frozen in dying agony. I just sat in bed, breathing hard and staring at the colorless torment in the weak light from my window. I kept lying back down and trying to convince myself it was a dream. I'm able to sit still more than a few seconds before jolting up again, stare at the painting. It took me almost half an hour to finally get out of bed, turn the lights on. I laughed out loud to see him sleeping peacefully in the casket with his eyes open. But I still slept with the light on the rest of the night. In the morning, his eyes were unmistakably open once more. I didn't blame Jack's painting. I blamed myself for being blind, like he always scolded me about. I called my mother and told her about my weird dream. Grandpa Jack is in pain, I told her. I would have said more, but I felt stupid and hung shortly after. I didn't actually hear the screaming. Until that second night, but by then it was already too late. Sometime in the early morning, I was out of bed halfway across the room before I was even fully awake. The sound ripped from me from the bed. Didn't realize it was coming from the painting. There was enough light to see grandfather's features twisted in agony. My downstairs neighbors started pounding the roof. They only seemed to make the screaming louder. The thrum of the blood in my ears matched the beat. They raced fast. I tried to run, but my door handle wouldn't struggle along. To stand by the door I had right next to the porch, its sound was excruciating. Next, I pulled the painting from the wall, hanging beneath the second painting. One I had never put there. One of the disfigured ones with all its slump face supported wrong. I saw this as a sign, although I was too freaked out to guess what it was, so I hung the screaming painting back up to cover that abomination. Re-secured to the wall, I started to retreat towards the window. I never made it more than a step before a firm grip grasp pulled my wrist, pulled me back. One of grandfather's hands no longer extended at the canvas. Cold, pale skin, his nails digging into me relentlessly, dragging me back towards the picture as though through an open window. Now I was screaming too. Someone started hammering on my door, trying to get myself into the wall of my feet. The pale hand shook it for its effort, but it was still stronger, inch by inch, pulling me into his coffin. I almost wiggled free when a second hand shot out, the one catching me by the throat to haul me forward at an alarming rate. It was so close I could smell him, not the Old Spice cologne he always wore. My face pressed against the canvas. It smelled like rotten meat. Then I was through. I clenched my eyes shut, helplessly, his cold arms wrapped around me. It was quiet on the other side. I couldn't even hear my heart anymore. The pressure around me was gentle. I liked being encompassed by cool water and heavy fog. A moment later, a sensation, I opened my eyes to be found standing in my bedroom, facing the portrait on the wall. Hands folded across his lap, eyes closed, just like it ought to be. So for the next half hour, profusely apologized. I'm lucky I didn't get locked up. After that, I called my mom and surprised to find her tears. Are you okay? Where are you? I asked. I'm okay. Dad's okay. I visited him in the cemetery. No, it's stupid of me, right? She paused to sniffle and blow her nose. Do you think he knows? I told her I think he was pretty pleased about that it made me happy too. I don't know what would have happened to me if she hadn't.
Story 3 by user Donlack93. Emily was my sister's best friend from childhood. In the 90s, she would, on Saturday mornings, they would always get to always be at each other's homes doing whatever little girls would do. Truly inseparable. Both families were close. I used to play for the same club as her brother. That's not important. Anyway, it all came to an abrupt halt, and ultimately Emily's family moved away under unclear circumstances. Many years went by to no explanation of why they moved. Thus, the miracle of social media reconnected us. A now grown-up Emily followed us in, along with her parents. Emily's mother works nights for a local radio station. When coming home from a night shift, she would stay in a spare room downstairs. Emily thought this was so that as not to wake up her father, who works from an early start. He was a postman. Her mom would always make some scrambled eggs for herself before bed. Emily always remembers the stench of eggs filling the house. Now Emily had a small bladder, so she had to take a few trips to the toilet during the course of the night, like most bathrooms. Emily's face is facing the top of the staircase leading downstairs. Occasionally during the night, Emily's mom would call up to her from the spare room and turn the upstairs hallway light off. From what Emily told us in later years, she was never nice about it either. She always seemed super pissed that Emily would constantly need to go upstairs, have the upstairs hallway light on to guide her to the bathroom. On such occasion, Emily emerged from the bathroom during the dead of night. Her mother's voice lingered at the bottom of the stairs in the main hallway. "Emily, I need you to come here," said her mother in a calm manner. "I need your help with something. Come down here, please." Normally, her mom would call from the downstairs spare bedroom in a less polite manner. This time, the voice was coming from the bottom of the seldom lit stairs. "Emily, I can't see the steps. Turn the light on first, and I'll come down." "Emily?" this time with more tone. Come to me now. According to Emily, something was off. She couldn't put her finger on it. But some primal instinct inside her was screaming not to go down. Point being 11-year-old girl she was, she wanted her daddy. Emily walked into the bedroom and turned the light on. Okay, so in later years, Emily's father also told my mom of what he saw. Well, Emily walked in and turned the light on. She seemed to stand there for a short moment, then her face went completely pale and her eyes widened. She let out a screeching wail. Her mother was in the bed beside Emily's dad. Emily's mom never stayed in the spare room downstairs and hated scrambled egg, period. So yeah, they moved into Emily's uncle's a few weeks until they sold the house for half the market price. They moved somewhere else. Emily told me she had to see a therapist because every time she sees or smells eggs, she has a panic attack, even today. To be honest, I don't fucking blame her.
Story 4 by user/10 gentlemen. This one's the long haul. Get ready, boys. First of all, you should know that you should never meet someone from the internet in their own home. There's far too many stories out there of people ending up dead or kidnapped. I knew that, of course, but I figured that given my friend Karen the address beforehand and carrying pepper spray in my purse meant that I was pretty prepared. I started talking to Martin on Tinder about 3 months before we decided to meet in person. I had just gotten out of a very toxic relationship and was eager to move on. I used the upgraded version of Tinder hoping to find a match outside of town. Martin was the first person I matched with. I found his profile to be quite charming. He was recently divorced, loved to cook, had 3 dogs, and plenty of jokes that actually made me laugh. And to be quite frank, I was happy to see any profile that didn't follow the same beats you saw with everyone. You like coffee and hiking, we get it, everybody does. Martin's photos were clearly airbrushed on Facetune, but hey, so are mine. He wore a hat in all of them, which screamed, I'm balding, but I didn't mind. He messaged me as soon as we matched and hit it off. We started talking on the phone every night. His voice had a childlike lull that I appreciated. He was a goof. We had long conversations about our lives, and then the first red flag appeared. We were talking about jobs we had before. I've been a doctor, police officer, fireman, astronaut, you name it. I chuckled. You're too much. No, I'm being serious. Really? I mean, you can't expect me to believe that. It's the absolute truth. I figured that he was playing a joke on me. He didn't seriously expect me to believe all that and wrote it off as a dumb joke. And I didn't quite get me on a conversation. Still, something in the back of my mind felt alarmed. Looking back at it now, I was hoping to meet up with him, but in all honesty, I was very desperate. Days later, I decided it was time that we met in person. He invited me to dinner and I agreed. After sending one of my friends to the address, I embarked on a 2-hour drive to Loveville. I thought the name was fake. Loveville? Seriously? However, I entered the address in my Google Maps and it was actually a real place. The next 2 hours catching up on podcasts and attempt to calm my nerves as I made the drive down. I figured the best way to get past my anxiety was to power through it. As I neared Loveville, my podcast started to cut out. My phone showed no bars, but my Google Maps had already routed the location and continued to guide me. It was strange that I had no reception out here, considering how well off Loveville looked. Maybe Martin was he had to be loaded. When I hit Martin Street, I began to panic. I scanned the area to find his house before finally. It's very tall, patterns looked like something out of Edward Scissorhands. You know, that German folktale? No. With the 4 deep breaths, I took out my phone and attempted to text Martin before I arrived. Message failed to deliver. Great! With a heavy breath, I got out of my car. The sun was bright, and all the pastels in the neighborhood weren't helping, so I tossed a pair of sunglasses and approached the house. Pressed the doorbell and could hear a charm play through the house. The door opened, making my heart stop. Cameron, how are you? Martin didn't Facetune his photos after all. He had perfect skin. I couldn't see a single pore. His round head almost shined. It was so smooth. He also wasn't balding. He was completely bald. The sun reflected off his head. Could have been blinded me had I not been wearing sunglasses. He wore a light pink polo with blue jeans. Not a wardrobe I particularly enjoy, but I'm sure he thought I looked like a streetwalker, such is life. I'm doing great, Martin. How are you? Never been better. Martin had a bright, big smile on his face. Come on in. I exhaled slowly and entered his home. It's decorated to perfection. Pastels everywhere, which seemed to be the theme of the town. Strange, and I'm not going to argue with rich folk. Why don't you have a seat on the couch? Dinner's just about ready. Sat on the couch, took off my sunglasses, and checked my phone. Still no service. You don't get great service out here, do you? No, it's doing really dodgy, he called from the kitchen. That didn't sit right with me. He talked on the phone quite a bit, and there was never any problems with it then, but it's not like I could fault him for that. It doesn't control cell reception. Maybe he has a landline. Those still exist in 2018, right? As I tapped my fingers on the phone screen and waited for Martin to return. So how was the drive? Martin came, sat in a chair next to me. It was fine. I had a lot of podcasts to catch on, so went pretty quickly. Do you listen to any? Can't say I have. We both just looked at each other and smiled, began to examine his page much more closely. I didn't notice it before, but when I was wearing sunglasses, but something about him looked off. I realized he was watching me stare at him and quickly engaged conversation. Oh, your dogs, where are they? They're in the backyard and want them to be all over, he chuckled. Oh, I don't mind. I love animals. We again just looked at each other and smiled. The more I looked at him, the more something felt off. Something about his face didn't, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Almost like he was plastic. I mean, I don't think Ken dolls are real. Isn't there a movie about that? I must have been staring for too long, because he soon broke the silence. Everything all right? Oh, yeah, I'm just... A loud ding echoed through the house. I jumped, visibly startled. That'd be dinner. I'll serve us up some plates and be right back. Martin got up and returned to the kitchen. Started examining the living room, making the detailed grandfather clock, a coffee table, lamps, potted plants. I noticed there was no TV, which absolutely was not going to work if we could get into our relationship. I glanced up at the wall and saw a photo of Martin Henry. He was wearing a police uniform. There was some truth to the joke after all. Martin returned and startled me. Dinner is served. I followed him to the dining room where he had set a couple of tables with plates at opposite ends. In the center of the table, there's a silver platter with a cover on top. We sat at our respective ends, and Martin put a bib in his polo. I just couldn't stop staring at his face. Something was so weird about it. At first, I felt rude, but eventually I didn't care. There was something wrong with it. Something that I'd never seen before. He looked like a doll or a robotic something or inorganic. Joke for that one. Martin reached over the uncovered platter and looked up my face and smiled. Enjoy. He lifted the cover and my eyes widened. Is it robots and junk? No, it's steak, peas, corn, potatoes, pizza, chicken, burgers, hot dogs, bananas, lettuce, tomatoes. Is it food? It's probably there. All made out of plastic. Miniature versions when you find a child's kitchen playset. Intriguing. I started laughing. Martin started loading up the toys onto his plate, and I just couldn't stop laughing. Martin started to laugh too. He laughed much more aggressively than I was. He was laughing loud and hard. His laughter grew, mine softened, until the blank expression. Despite his hysterical laughter, no tears came out of his face. He couldn't stop laughing. Martin started laughing too. He laughed much more aggressively. What the... okay. A couple of moments his laughter ended. That was good. He began using a knife on the fork choice. This was a psycho. I needed to leave. Where's your restroom? I asked. Should have bolted out the door. Last door down the hall. He pointed general direction. His hands looked so odd. When he put them out in position, they looked like they were stuck there for a time. I excused myself and made my way to the bathroom. It was a small toilet, decorated with pastels, and the rest of the house was... I couldn't help it. I vomited on the toilet. It was all too much. After several pants, I lifted my head and tried to flush. It was stuck. Damn it, I thought. I closed the lid and went in the sink to wash my hands. I tried to turn the nozzle, but it wouldn't turn. What is wrong with this place? I panted under my breath. I looked at the mirror and it met with a shock. There was no reflection. It wasn't glass. It was plastic. That explains how he's rich. Plastic is much cheaper than extravagant glass. I opened the bathroom door and made my way back down the hall, feeling as if I was losing myself in a sea of anxiety. I thought I was going to pass out. I look at the pictures on the walls, and my heart sank. They were of Martin as a fireman, a doctor, an astronaut, a teacher, a race car driver, an actor, a chef, a bartender, a greaser, and the president. Did we have a president, Martin? Yeah, probably. This guy was insane. I started towards the front door. You know, he could have just all taken pictures of that, right? That's not impossible. Everything all right? Martin asked through his gritted teeth. He looked different than he had before. Either I was hallucinating or his face was changing before his eyes. His eyebrows were thick, look what was painted on. His eyes looked bland, as if the bit of shine and detail was gone. I didn't answer. I turned around and when I slid and glass door. Actual real glass. On the ground, there were 3 dogs. 3 plastic dogs. My panting picked up speed. My eyes swelled with tears. I just wanted to go home. I looked around for a way to leave back. There wasn't one. I turned back toward Martin. Everything all right? He was still smiling. His plastic-looking skin shined. It was coated in oil. He's getting ready to go. I'd like to leave, I said through a... Martin stepped out of the way. Everything all right? I don't feel well and I want to go. Martin continued to approach me. Alarms went off in my head. I pulled out pepper spray and got close and went down to his face. Didn't face him. He continued to approach me. We've already deduced he's made of plastic. What? His face twisted. His smile appeared to be literally upside down. And no. He put his hands on my shoulders. I screamed, punching him in the head with all my might. His head popped off. No, it didn't just fall off. It popped off. A loud pop sound. In the bottom of his neck, there was a hole connecting a piece attached to his body. I screamed. I screamed quite a bit. His body stumbled around trying to find his head. So he's a robot, right? The time for thinking was over. I ran past Martin, back into the house, grabbing my purse, heading for the front door. On my way out, I could have sworn I heard barking from these 3 dogs. I pulled my purse from my keys, hopped in my car, peeling out. I tried to use Google Maps to find my way out, but all connection was lost. You start driving for a while, you eventually get signal, I believe. I drive around looking for anyone to help me in direction. All miles stopping. There was nobody on the streets. I finally found a gas station. Ran inside to see somebody there. I'm gonna take a guess right now. It's Martin. I wiped my tears. Pretty small. I looked for a cashier or customer. Nobody inside. I looked around the store. Candy. Might be chips, soda, beer, jerky, cigarettes, frozen meals. They're all stickers. Every aisle in the mall covered in stickers that resembled the product. I screamed again, sprinting out of the store. I don't care anymore. I drove like a maniac on the wrong side of the road. 3 yards. I needed to get out. There was not a single person, so I finally saw familiar territory and followed the road. Several minutes later, I was out of Loveville and back on. I was speeding, slightly swerving out of my lane, and it was hard to see the tears continuing for several more minutes until I finally calmed down and pulled over the side of the road. I pulled out my phone, hoping to have service. Thankfully, I did. I had 47 texts, 52 missed calls from Karen. She said she was ready to call the police, and I texted back to sure I was all right. The address was fake. Fake? I texted in response. That couldn't be. I entered in Google Maps and guided me to Martin's. There was no way it was fake. Once more, to my surprise, it said there was no results. My heart began racing. I was met with all this news, and the place was gone. That couldn't possibly be. Couldn't fathom what had happened. None of this seemed real. A fake guy in a fake town, the most horrific experience of my life, happened, and no one for it. I considered turning around to get photos of the place. I had to type evidence to prove I wasn't crazy, but the thought of being forced to relive it, that made me want to throw up again. Closed my eyes to be threat. Above all, I was happy to be headed home, a place where things made sense. I wasn't sure how long I sat there with my eyes closed before my phone vibrated. I checked it, expecting to be a call from Karen. Text from Martin. I just wanted to make you smooth, baby. Oh, that's it. That's the end of it. All right, folks. That's all 4 stories for today. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Hit that little bell. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. I hope you enjoyed the little crap I added. It should be very obvious when I added and when I didn't. Maybe it'll go over well. Maybe it won't. I don't care.
Who knows? Who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to thank. I also want to let you guys know that I have started a brand new channel that is called Creepypasta Chase, which is basically me recording myself reading creepypastas that I find from the internet or if here on Reddit. Now, I am going to tell you guys this now. I do have a personal story that I am going to be reading on that channel coming out probably Wednesday. I don't really know, but Yeah, be sure you guys go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description below, or you guys will see it right now on the end screen annotations. Make sure you go check out my main channel too, my gaming channel, and also make sure you guys go check out the Reddit post that we have that we read out of, and
Also,
yes.
be sure to check out twitch.tv/Naxos950 #plug. No, I plan on streaming in the near month or 3. So, you know, go check out my live stream on twitch.tv/Naxos950. Anyways, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed. And without further ado,
We'll see you guys.
video.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video.